Welcome to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast, providing business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs with the 3 Ins: insights, inspirations, and intentional actions. Delivered through monologues and dialogues, we address topics like leadership, productivity, time management, work-life balance, and challenges like stress, conflict, mental health, and much more. Please do not hold back from suggesting specific topics and guests you would like on this podcast. Greetings and welcome to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success. Again, this is one of these weeks where I have a guest on board, and again, this time around, it's from the opposite side of the planet on the other hemisphere, but a different country this time. And it is JD that is here with me today, and I really look forward to our conversation. So I'm going to hand it straight over to JD to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about him.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Mikal, for having me on the show and being the first Canadian to be on the podcast. I am JD Tremblay, an integrated engineer and naturopath, and I now work as the director of high performance at Hungry Warrior Academy, where we build men to have more clarity and discipline in their life with the Deca system.
And what does that mean?
The Deca system is built after one event that I did as an ultra triathlete, which is the EpicDeca, which stands for 10 Ironman in 10 days on 6 different Hawaiian islands. Only 3 people in the world have achieved it, and we developed it to help build a framework for our pillars for the company.
So just let me get this right. 10 in 10 days. Most people can't even do 1 in 1 year. How does that work? How do you do that?
10 Ironman, it requires definitely some mental resilience. It requires the discipline, and it also requires the structure. For me, it was mainly about finishing it, not necessarily about the performance and overdoing the others. For me, it was about being one of 3, or at first it was one of 10, and we were 6 at the start line, and we ended up being 3 at the finish line.
And how were you feeling after the 10th? Or maybe I should ask first, how were you feeling after the 7th and then the 10th?
And after the 7, my legs had stopped working a long time ago. I was already on massage cream between every single event. So after the swim, I was receiving some form of massage on the legs by my crew. And then after the bike, I would be receiving some form of massage on the shoulders because I would be on my bike all the time. And between the bike and the run, I would also receive some form of massage on the legs because I was walking and running. This was not an event that was a race for me, and many people would think that it's quite difficult, and I would say that it was okay. It was difficult. However, if you go quite slowly, like walking, jogging, then you can accomplish so much more than the majority. So the people that are doing 1 Ironman are trying to do it as fast as they can, and they understand that there's nothing after that is physically demanding. They'll be resting maybe for a day or 2 before they get back to work, unless they took some time off from work. But for me, I understood that I had to perform on the next day. So I took some time for myself during the transitions between the swim and the bike. I would really take my time, eat well. I would follow the structure that I had in place. And with that, I was able to complete the EpicDeca.
How did it feel after the 10th? What went through your mind at that point when you crossed the
I
line?
thought, yeah, I thought I would be famous. I thought I would be making money. I thought my social media would be buzzing. And I did not even have an Instagram account at that time. I did not even have a LinkedIn. We had no social media other than my personal Facebook account. And I posted it on my social media. A few people said, "Congratulations, that is insane," or uh, "You belong in a mental institute." All of those great encouragement.
Yeah.
but I, yeah, but I really thought that I would be making money, being famous, being one of three in the world. I thought, well, I'm making history. That's it. Now, nothing. Nothing happened. I was alone because my crew had to leave the next day. So they were driven to the airport. They took their flight home. I stayed in a hotel alone in the dark because overstimulation of my body was extreme for 10 days. So I could not get stimulated in any form in the sense of my sensory my nervous system was so hyped into trying to acquire a sugar for 10 days at a specific amount and trying to be at peak performance for 10 days that I could not even look at a bright light. So I had to turn off the lights. So I'm alone in a hotel room, nobody to talk to. The lights are dark, and I can't do anything. Like there's no like, what am I gonna do? Go for another bike ride to just cool it off? There's like I'm not going to use physical fitness to cope with any of the mental struggles that I was going through.
Mm.
So that's what was going through my mind. I thought that this was the catalyst for my success, and little did I know that I would have to work for it to get to be successful and make money and monetize the massive financial hole that I dug myself into with this event.
What an experience! I mean, what a story! And congratulations! I'll give you a congratulation on that, I look forward to getting this out to our audience and hearing stories like that. It's amazing. And as our podcast here is about mental fitness, one thing that I can guarantee, in order for any one person to do one Ironman, you have to be reasonably mentally fit because it ain't easy. Even if you take it easy, it's still not easy. But to do 10 in a row, you have got to have, like, obviously the physical fitness, but it's not enough. If you're not mentally fit, there's no way you can pull that off. So I would love to hear, what are your thoughts on this term mental fitness? Like what does that mean to you? Because it's a relatively new term that hasn't been around for very long. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I would say that your brain adapts to whatever patterns you reinforce.
Right.
So, however, you think that you messed up with your brain in the past, you might have been through addictions, you might have been going through some stress in your life that is extreme, an extreme stimulus that cause you to have some form of mental trauma. There is this phenomenon called neuroplasticity. And so which is the ability for the brain to adapt. So if you reinforce proper healthy coping mechanism, you're able to achieve certain events, or you're able to achieve certain heights that others would not, if they're not going to put themselves through it. So that mental resilience is built by really looking at, for us, we use the next system, and that's what we developed after. And the next system starts with the nervous system. So there's an overstimulation of the nervous system that is happening in today's world, where people are scrolling on social media far too much. Screens are everywhere. We're talking about frequencies that are constantly disrupting our sleep, disrupting our water, disrupting our daily lives. And we have in our pocket, even our phones very often emit certain frequencies, and then we put those frequencies in our pocket, not really thinking about it, but those frequencies can harm your body. So really understanding that your nervous system is overloaded, and when it's overloaded, to be able to calm yourself down. And that's what I did. I had to regulate my nervous system, understand what were the stressors to it. And once I understood this, then and force myself to regulate that nervous system, then we were able to put a plan in place to achieve the EpicDeca. And so it's not just about forcing yourself to go to the gym, forcing yourself, because what you're doing is you might push more on your nervous system than you previously had. Because what you're doing is you're adding an artificial stimulus. Like the gym is artificial stimulus. It's not real life. You are working for the event, but the event is the real life. Or even the event, I would say, is not even the real life unless you're an athlete. It's just the step to get to your real life. So that was the starter, was understanding my nervous system and what would spike those nervous system what would spike the nervous system. Then we go to E, which is environment, right? So your environment will always beat your intentions, or almost always. Very often you have people with lots of willpower, but because their environment is not conducive to their growth. And for me, when I grew up, I did not grow up in an environment where triathlon was the dominant sport in my village up north of Quebec. Nobody was doing triathlon. Nobody wanted to wear a tight, skinny suit on a fast bike. Everybody was riding Harley. Everybody was chopping down woods or working in a factory, and there was nothing that had to do with triathlon. So again, my environment had to shift, or at the very least my mindset, and I had to cut on if the people wanted to be my friends, they would have to do triathlons, because my environment was not conducive otherwise. The guys would be going to drink beer. And again, if I knew that it was a stressor on my nervous system, it was not the right environment. So there's that. The X is, and I understand that exposure does not start with X, but but it's exposure to discomfort. So you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to reach that next level. Because if you're always in a comfort zone, then you're not growing. So I had to put myself in an uncomfortable situation and expose myself to these conditions, climbing mountains with my son, with him in a sled. It was uncomfortable, definitely, but over time, I became more accustomed to this being my comfort zone, and my son, he was always happy and excited to jump in the snow and go with me. And even if it was cold, sometimes we would just get him a bigger suit, and that's about it. And then the T is for truth, and so it's not about how you feel. It's really about the truth of what needs to happen. You can slow down, because I talked about nervous system at first, but the truth is that the majority, if not all, of athletes don't really want to wake up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning to do their first workout. But if that's what you need to get to your other level, then you have to look at the truth and not your feelings and not what you prefer, just what is needed. What is needed for you to achieve that next level, what actually works. Because again, those feelings, they change daily. Sometimes I wake up, I'm excited about working out, but I know I have to work out. So there's always these conflicting feelings inside of you. But if you're looking at what is truth and what has worked in the past, then you're able to achieve so much more. And that can work for anyone. It doesn't have to be someone who wants to do an EpicDeca or some crazy challenge like that.
Thank you for sharing that whole next thing. And there's so many things in what you're sharing there that I could piggyback off a lot of those and add in into it. But I'm not going to do that because I think you did a fantastic job at it. There's just one thing there with that neuroplasticity, whatever you neuroplasticity thingy. What's interesting for me in that is that we have that capacity in our mind to learn and absorb and adjust and change things. And if we don't use that to our favor, the world around us will use it, like through the social media and to the inputs we get through our screens. And then we get programmed, like that neuroplasticity is used, but in a way that actually doesn't serve us. Whereas what you're saying is it's a since that's going to happen regardless, why not take charge of that and then choose what it is that I put into my mind and then train my mind to get me to the next level, whatever the next level is. Because I think most people want to go to the next level, whether that's in their marriage, whether it's business, whether it's finances, whether it's physical health. I think it's natural to human beings to want to go to the next level. So programming that consciously. So thank you for all of that. I really want to get to some stories also about mental fitness, but more like stories from your life. As we talked about earlier, there I kind of see there's two stories. There's the kind of stories that things didn't go too well. Like we failed, or at least at the time it looked like we failed. And the reason was because we didn't have the mental fitness to do what needed doing, to not get up and do the exercise we needed to do, or make that phone call we needed to do. We shied away from that, and then we didn't get the success or didn't get to the next level. And the other side of the coin, of course, are the stories where the tremendous success that you've created for yourself and some stories of that, and then I will do my best to tie the mental fitness concept into it. So I'll leave it to you what side of the coin you want to start on.
Uh, where I failed was the Ultraman World Championship. I was registered for a lot of other races throughout the world, And the EpicDeca really fell at the last minute on my plate. In February, I registered for the EpicDeca. And in May, I was going into that event. So that gives you somewhat of a rundown. 3 months before, I'm going into 10 Ironman. So even my coach, he was saying, JD, you will ruin all of your other races if you do the EpicDeca. So you have to pick. So this was a success for me because I finished it, but I could have ruined an entire year and thousands of dollars that I already registered to all of these other races. So I could have ruined that. Where it came that I was not at prime or not at peak performance is at the Ultraman World Championship. And I was already having, how many Ironman did I do in 1 year? And I did at least, I would say at least 13. Okay, at least 13. There's more than that, but at least 13 Ironman that I did throughout the year. Plus, I had 4 world championships, racing against the best in the world in those categories. I get to the half Ironman World Championship. I finished it, but again, I can't finish strong. There's just my entire race season is ruined. And I say ruined. It was an amazing time. I don't regret it, but again, I pushed my system to its limit. When I got to Ultraman World Championship, I get to the swim, and normally I'm a strong swimmer. So I'm in the front of the pack, but this time there was a problem that happened at the last minute. The guy who was supposed to be my kayaker, he was unable to take his flight, and so we had to switch rapidly. The guy that replaced him never paddled in his life. He did a fantastic job for what transpired. But we ended up in the wrong lane. We ended up in the waves, and instead of, normally it takes me for that 10-kilometer swim, it normally takes me about 3 hours and sometime less. But now in this case, it took me for this time, it took me over 5.5 hours. I started puking, and it was very, very slow. I had to hold on to that kayak, puke, and then take my electrolytes again, take my sugar, get to the next stage. Then I finished, and I got changed really quickly, and I did not make it for the cutoff. So there's a cutoff for these races. It's 12 hours, and I just did not finish it. And I talk about it in my book. It was a painful moment because that was my first DNF, which stands for did not finish. So to me, that was a painful moment. I then realized that the mental fitness is not just about pushing harder. It's about having the structure to operate clearly, even when things are uncomfortable. And that structure also includes recovery. And I did not have the time to recover between all of these races. I just went another race after another race. And the race that I was training for, the race that it still today really hits home, because I did not finish that race. And that was the race when in 2009, I was praying, and I really, really wanted to do that race. This was the race that I really wanted to finish. So I'm excited that I completed the EpicDeca and all of these other races around the world. But this one was the motivator, the race that I was excited about finishing. I wanted to finish the Ultraman World Championship in Hawaii, and I did not finish it. So the organizer invited me to complete it again. It just did not fit into the schedule, and we moved to other side of the business. But to me, that was a moment when I understood that again, mental fitness isn't just about pushing harder. It's about also the recovery and understanding that you don't need another coffee or another energy drink. Maybe sometime all you need is to take a nap.
Thank you for sharing that, JD. And I think that that's a really important thing, because I think a lot of people, I work mostly with business owners and business leaders, and in most cases they are full on. As you know, you're one yourself, and it is typically full on. It's long hours and it's pushing, pushing, pushing. And in that setting again, the mental fitness is not about just being able to push. For me, mental fitness is really about being able to follow and stick to what what the body, what our being, what our soul, what our intuition is telling us. So first we need to learn to listen to our environment, but to listen to ourselves, like listen to our body. And if the body says it will be a good time to rest, then mental fitness is then the ability to go, yes, if that's what I really need, that's what I want to do, even though in the mind, when you need to do this, I need to practice this, I need to do the exercise, I need to do that training, I need to push because I need somewhere to go. But if the body says, hold on, for me, that's where the mental fitness comes in, is that we are able to listen and do what's right in the moment, even if that is against what we believe is right. And that's really sort of what I take out of what you shared. So thank you for that. Then let's.
Definitely. I mean, we live in a world now that is completely different than what our parents, grandparents were living.
Mm,
For example, the mental fitness back then for work, you were working in a shop, you were taking your tools at work, then you were working with those tools at work. When you got home, there was no distraction. You were leaving those tools at the job.
yeah.
There's no the level of communication. And no, I'm not that old, but uh, we had the landline when I was a child, and not many people had cell phones when I grew up. But nowadays, if you want to reach someone, it can be done within seconds. You
Mhm.
want to reach anyone. Now we operate just on our philanthropic side. We operate in over 4 different countries. And just that alone, talking to people in a completely different time zone and sending them messages. And sometimes I get messages in the middle of the night. Sometimes I get messages in the middle of the night because these people are talking to me about some uh, some event that is happening in their country, and now I need to take action, but I need to regulate it and create that structure and say I will only work during those hours if I want to operate for a long time, because otherwise I could be filling my brain, my entire schedule with tasks for 24 hours. There would not be any stopping, and I could be in many countries. There is it in seconds now, and we're not leaving work anymore.
Mm,
So I would say that mental fitness, that's why I love the podcast, is mental fitness is even more important nowadays than ever before, even more so than physical health,
mm,
because physical health will only be the marker of your mental health. So, for example, your HRV, like your heart rate variability, or even your heart rate. When you look at just these two factors, they can say how well rested you are. They can say how quickly you can go from a stressful environment to calming your nervous system. You can really look at your mental fitness from a scientific approach, but for us right now, we're not able to stop unless we put a stop to it. And I would advise people not to look more uh, for more work, because that's how technologies like AI will beat you. Technologies like AI will beat you because they're able to regurgitate or throw more content on your plate than ever before. But it's the people that will succeed are the people that are able to regulate their system and stay mentally fit and healthy. Those are the people that will succeed, not just the people that are able to operate these technologies. That there is a component of using it, and I would say quality over quantity, because AI can throw a lot of quantity at you, but is it really quality? And so that's what I would advise people on, is more of the quality of the work and the quality of even the recovery.
Fantastic. I love you, JD, because you're speaking my language. And as soon as you said mental fitness is more important than physical fitness, you got me. Because that's what I've been saying for a long time. Um, because to have good physical fitness, you actually have to have good mental fitness to be able to say no to the temptations, to be able to say yes to the exercise you need to do when you don't want to. And that takes mental fitness to be physically fit. So swapping that around and putting the focus there, and also in a part of your story is that people can still go to work and do their eight hours of work or working in a business. But then when they come home, they can keep working because they can still do their emails, they can still do social media and that. And that's where the mental fitness comes in, where you go, no, or yes, I'm doing this and I'm happy doing this because that's what I want to do and it serves me and it serves my life. By all means, then do it. But if the wife and the kids are next door and they're going, well, where's dad? Then maybe rethink whether you should be doing that at home. So again, it takes the mental fitness to say no to do that because again, it's easy. I can get another 3 hours in tonight for work, and as you
Yeah.
said, even if you got 24 hours, you're gonna fill it up. And I tell some people, what? Hey, I got a magic wand. I'm gonna give you 4 more hours a day for the next month. And oh, great, 4 more hours. What are you gonna do with it? And they're just gonna fill it up with the same stuff that they're filling up the 24 hours with. And do you really think that that's actually going to change anything in the long run? It's not. Yeah.
When you're drained mentally, you're not capable of taking care of your body.
Mm.
And then your body is now suffering. There's a book that was for the 80-20, and it's been shown by a lot of athletes as well, where it's 80% mental or an 80% psychological and 20% physical for, and I would say most, if not all of the tasks that you do. Even construction workers or even athletes would look at the work that they have to do. And although construction workers, athletes, it's mostly physical, they also understand that it is a mental game.
Mm.
For me, after the first 1 kilometer, if not sometime less, it's not even the physical anymore. Like there's the physical just becomes routine for
Mm.
me.
Mm.
It's natural. If I go swimming, I jump in the water, I start swimming, and within a few strokes, I'm already in the mental game, trying to fight the urges of stopping, or the urges of not having the proper form. And that's what differentiates an elite athlete from an amateur, is that this elite person, this elite CEO, is able to stay in the mental game for much longer. But in order to do that, they have to regulate their system. They have to recover well. Hence why those biomarkers are important for what you want to achieve. So you have to understand them. You have to understand how you regulate your system. And if you don't, then you will burn yourself out. And we're seeing the rise of certain illnesses, burnouts, depressions, anxieties, because people are oftentimes not regulating their system. There are some underlying physical issues for some people, and consult your doctor if you if you have these issues. But they are closely related to what we are undergoing at the moment, and it's quite sad that people think that mental fitness is about doing more in terms of pushing harder, instead of slowing down and pushing harder where it really matters. Some of the athletes, and I trained with Olympians, I've trained with people who are elite athletes, and even the runners that's their job. They just run. They go for a run, they eat well, they sleep, they rest, they take their nap, and then they go back and then they run. But their mindset is about running. Their mindset isn't all over the place thinking about their lifestyle and what they're going through, and their mindset is focused on the run. And you can see, as soon as an athlete's mind goes, then their entire performance is out of the window. We're seeing it with a lot of athletes right now, with the situation of the mental health and mental fitness. And for me, I would say physically, a lot of people would be able to achieve an EpicDeca. I don't want to just minimize the achievement, but I would say a lot of people are able to do a lot more than they can. If we have the mental game, there's a lot less people, but there's still a lot of people. And then you add the spiritual aspect, or the environment, the variables that you can't control, and that's where we can say that there's only 3 people in the world that completed that. But the mental game definitely decreases the pool of individuals that are able to complete that event, just because it requires a mindset of, you're not going to quit no matter what happened. And that mental game, we think that it comes in when the event is on, but really I'm talking about preparation for the event. And I was so prepared that when I still have that message, it was beautiful, and I loved it, because I had the best coach, and it was a triathlon coach. And I reached out to him and I said, there's this guy he went on Facebook. I follow him. He got into an accident and he's not going to be able to do the EpicDeca. So I'm considering buying his registration, because they're only taking 10 people. I'll buy his registration. The race is in May. But we're talking about beginning of January. He said that or middle of January. He said that on Facebook. And I said, and my coach replied, JD, you are trained for ultra endurance events, but you are definitely not trained for an EpicDeca. He said, how about you do it next year? And I said, it's only going to happen once because it's for the 10-year anniversary. They're not going to do it again. So he said, I can't really coach you for an EpicDeca. This is massive, but I still chose to do it. I went for it. I went after the EpicDeca. He said, you will ruin all of your other races that you're registered in. And to me, that was fine. I wanted to take a chance. But again, I was trained for all of these races. I was trained to be that ultra endurance athlete. So it wasn't just a preparation that in February I get a call. Someone is saying, if I was not trained and someone called me and said, in 3 months you're doing an EpicDeca, I would say this is suicide. You must rethink your strategy, please. Do not take on that challenge. But I started preparing a long time ago for these types of events. So for me, I was willing to take that opportunity. So mental fitness does not start when the stimulus happen. It happens when you start preparing for the larger stimulus, and eventually you can call it life, God. So God's going to throw some stimulus at you that are much larger than you think you can achieve, but because you've trained for it, somehow you're going to be able to achieve it. And now everybody's going to think that you're a superhero, but you're not a superhero. Like JD is not a superhero. I want everybody to understand that there's nothing special about JD. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just that JD followed the structure, followed the system, and eventually it led to JD being able to complete that event because he followed a set of structure and he had the training for this mental resilience. But can anybody complete something of that magnitude? Definitely. Yes. If you have the training, I would say a lot of people are underselling themselves on mental fitness.
So there is the positive story of you succeeding in something, because you built that or had that mental fitness along the way. You're absolutely right. Mental fitness is not something that happens in the moment where the pressure is on. That's the fruit of the building of that mental fitness, but you have to build that before you end up in those challenging situations. So that beautifully kind of leads me into one of the last couple of questions I got for you here today, which is you talk a lot about that mental fitness that you had to be able to achieve these things and do the training and complete things. What I'm curious to hear is how did you build that mental fitness? Did that happen automatically just because of the way you were doing things, or did you read books, or you mentioned something about getting coaches? So how did you grow that mental fitness, whether it was a conscious effort or whether it happened by itself?
I was always into the physical realm. I always loved to learn, hence the Hunger for More in Life book or the Hungry Warrior Academy. I was always hungry for more. I was always trying to learn and set my goals always really high. As I always say, it's um, if your goals don't scare you, set the bar higher. And I was always setting the bar higher. I was always trying to achieve more and trying to see where my limits were. But again, for most of my life, I operated in a performance mode, a mode of survival. So for me, I grew up at the age of 17. I was my parents just said, you're on your own. We did not grow up with a lot of financial means. So at the age of 17, I was already on my own, trying to fight in life with no real bearing. For me, it was about survival. And what I understood was that I had to somehow train. So physically, I had to train. And it became somewhat my non-negotiable. Even today, it is part of my non-negotiables. I must do some form of physical training. And you see that people, and I talked about heart rate variability and heart rate, when you are healthy, when your body is healthy, when you learn about your body and how to make it adapt, not just your brain, but your body to a certain type of stimulus, then you gain a bit more clarity in your decision or even in your relationships, because you're hanging out with people who share similar values than you. And your body, when it adapts, when it's healthy, then you're inevitably able to achieve more with them on the mental side. So it's closely correlated with the mental and the physical side. The physical side is only the engine that leads you to it. But when you look at the mind is the main driver. So you can operate in fear or you can operate in faith. For me, most of my life, I operated in fear, which is the survival mechanism. And then now that my base is built, I am able to live in faith, where last year, I swam between two provinces over 17 kilometers. And for me, it was when I got into the event, I knew I could finish it. There was no part of me that wanted to quit. At no point was I ever even doubting. There were a lot of other people. One person I was coaching at the time, we were swimming, and that person was telling me, JD, it doesn't even seem like you are working out. Like you are in a pool, doggy paddling, just working on the form of another athlete when you should be focused on an event that is swimming between two provinces. That an event that might scare a lot of people or that might put into a, a hospital bed for a lot of people, but for you, you're just seeing it as a routine. And so for me, physical fitness became a non-negotiable, and I built that mental resilience to live out of fear and live more into a faith.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome advice there, JD. So to finish off today, what suggestions would you give people who are listening into this, who maybe don't quite have the level of mental fitness that you have managed to acquire through all those years of hard work? What are maybe one or two suggestions that you would that you could share with us on how people can grow their mental fitness in a conscious way?
It's going to be painful regardless of the choice that you make. If you go for a run, it will be painful. But if you stay on the couch and do nothing, it will also be painful. So I would say, as an advice, pick your pain, because regardless, it will be painful.
Love that.
And
I love that.
eventually you will build that mental resilience.
Hmm.
And now I'm at a stage in my life where we're creating an impact. So it's not even about the event. It's about the impact that you generate on others, the inspiration that others drive from what we talk about, from our courses, from our coaching, from our therapies, from everything that we do now becomes an impact in people's lives.
Hmm.
But that's because I went through pain
Mm-hmm.
and I chose a different type of pain.
Mm.
Is it painful to talk about my my personal life? Is it painful to go out and train at this level? And it is very painful. But I chose that this pain is less than the pain that I have in my head.
Mm. Yeah, I love that like no matter what choices we make, there's going to be pain involved. Even sitting on the couch, because if you sit there for long enough, that's going to get really painful, like really painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I love that what you just said. Never heard it said that before. Is it's going to be painful, so pick your pain. Put a smile on your face and say, well, I'm going to pick that one because that's the one that's going to serve me the most. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So we'll make sure that I get all the details from you with your Hungry Warrior Academy, so we can put that in and people can go and check it out. And you mentioned about a book. Let's get that. Make sure I get the title of all that. We will put that in. You also mentioned about philanthropy. So, are you happy just to very quickly share with us what you're doing in that?
Yes, we are now with 4 different countries, helping thousands of children around the world, giving them opportunities with water, housing, sports initiatives. And we see the growth, not just in donating money, but also putting mentors in their life that is providing them with the mindset to be more mentally fit to make better decisions for their lives, depending on their means. Those kids, they grow up in an environment that most would not even comprehend, because we're talking about extreme poverty. And I'm excited. It's a passion for me to be able to now reach a stage where we're able to donate, to share our resources with these children. I think they need it, and who knows where they will end up. They might we're building them, we're giving them the tools, and we're not expecting anything in return. So that to me is I'm really excited. That's my passion, definitely, with the philanthropic side of the company. Watching all of those smiles on those precious children, that is just so precious to me.
And that, as you were sharing that was one of the biggest smiles I've seen on you today. There's been plenty of smiles. That was a really big one there. That, like, and when we choose to do things like that, that's what really feeds the soul. And again, it's a pain that you've chosen, because with that comes there will be a certain level of pain with that, with the logistics and the practical things and making things actually happen, and all the loopholes that you probably have to jump through to get into those countries and doing all those things. But it's a pain that you chose. And you obviously have the mental fitness built over those decades of the hard work that you've done. So thank you so much, JD, for coming on today and for sharing some epic stories and real wonderful insights. I really appreciate that, all the way from Canada.
Thank you, Mikal, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience today for joining us here. I look forward to catching you in the next episode. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success. If you have stories of how mental fitness has benefited you that you are happy to share, go to my website, mikal.nz, click on podcast and fill in the guest application form. If you want direct support from me utilizing my 40 years of mental fitness learning and practice, email me at coach@mikal.nz or message me on LinkedIn. Any feedback, review, share, follow, like, or any other good stuff is, of course, appreciated. Thank you for listening to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast. I'm your host, Mikal Nielsen.